They laughed when the plate of steaming pasta crashed onto his lap, mocking the man in the bright red MAGA hat without a second thought. To them, he was just another problem to deal with, a symbol of everything they despised. What they didn't know was that the man they humiliated wasn't just a quiet diner. He was the mayor of their town. And the lesson he was about to teach them would leave the entire restaurant in stunned silence. The sun hung high in a cloudless sky, casting a golden glow over the quiet streets of Maplewood, Ohio. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, or at least thought they did. Alex Harper, the town's respected mayor, pushed open the door to Green Fork, a small but bustling farm-to-table restaurant known for its fresh ingredients and hip ambiance. The smell of roasted vegetables and artisanal bread greeted him, along with the faint hum of indie music playing overhead. Alex was dressed casually, in khakis and a light polo shirt, but the one item that drew every eye in the room was the bright red "Make America Great Again" hat perched on his head. It wasn't an unusual sight. He'd worn it before around town. For Alex, it was more than a political symbol. It was a reminder of his commitment to local values and the hard-working people he served. But not everyone saw it that way. As he stepped inside, conversations at a few tables quieted. A couple in the corner exchanged a look, their whispers barely audible over the clinking of silverware. At another table, a man in a plaid shirt shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing sideways at Alex before turning his attention back to his meal. Alex noticed the reactions, but didn't let them bother him. He had long since learned to navigate the polarized opinions of his constituents. Actions, he believed, spoke louder than words. He spotted an open table by the window, a perfect spot to enjoy the late afternoon sunlight, and settled in. The laminated menu was already on the table, but before he could pick it up, a young waitress appeared. She was slender, with dyed blue streaks in her short black hair and a nose ring that caught the light. Her name tag read Mia, and the forced smile on her face barely masked her discomfort. She held the menu out to him, though it was already within his reach, and set it down on the table a little too hard. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, her tone clipped. Alex looked up at her and smiled politely. "Sure, just water for now." Mia's lips tightened into something resembling a smirk. She nodded stiffly and spun on her heel, muttering something under her breath as she walked away. The words were too quiet for Alex to catch, but her tone was sharp enough to draw his attention. From his seat, he saw Mia approach another server, a young man in an apron with curly hair. They leaned in close, their heads together as they whispered. Both glanced in Alex's direction, their eyes filled with something between amusement and disdain. Mia gestured toward his table, and the young man shook his head with a chuckle. The air in the room seemed to shift. A tension settled over the space, subtle but unmistakable, like the distant rumble of an approaching storm. Alex, always observant, noted the shift in body language around him, the way the server glanced his way before disappearing into the kitchen, the slight frown of the hostess as she rearranged menus at the front stand. The faint sense of being watched prickled at his senses, but Alex remained calm. He opened the menu and scanned it thoughtfully, his fingers brushing over the options. He was a regular here and had his favorites, particularly the turkey club sandwich with fresh avocado. Despite the change in atmosphere, he wasn't going to let it ruin his lunch. Sitting back in his chair, Alex exhaled slowly. He'd dealt with worse. The faint clatter of plates and silverware filled the air as Mia emerged from the kitchen, a plate balanced precariously on her forearm. The dish was heaping with pasta, its marinara sauce glistening under the soft overhead lights. The restaurant wasn't particularly busy. Only a handful of tables were occupied, but Mia seemed determined to take the most convoluted path possible to Alex's table. She weaved through the dining area with exaggerated caution, brushing against chairs and narrowly avoiding bumping into other diners. Her movements, though deliberate, were marked by a feigned clumsiness that drew a few curious glances. People began to notice her erratic trajectory, their murmured conversations slowing as their attention shifted to her precarious balancing act. Alex watched her approach, his face calm, but his sharp eyes missing none of the theatrics. His instincts told him something was off, but he chose not to react. Instead, he folded his hands on the table, his posture steady and unyielding. Finally, Mia reached his table. She paused, holding the plate aloft for a moment, as if to steady herself. And then it happened. With a dramatic lurch, Mia tilted her arm, and the plate slipped from her grasp. Time seemed to slow as the pasta tumbled through the air, the vibrant red marinara sauce spilling in thick, messy arcs, before landing squarely on Alex's lap. The impact sent noodles sprawling and sauce splattering across his khakis, shirt, and shoes. A collective gasp rippled through the restaurant. Forks froze mid-air, conversations halted, and every head turned toward the scene unfolding at Alex's table. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" Mia exclaimed, her voice loud and theatrical. Her hands flew to her face in mock horror, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of amusement. Alex stood up slowly, his movements measured. The sauce was everywhere, soaking into his pants and dripping in sticky rivulets down his legs. His once pristine shoes were now a soggy mess of tomato and oil. Yet his expression remained composed, his gaze fixed on Mia with a quiet intensity. "It's fine," he said, his voice even, betraying no hint of anger. "Accidents happen." But Mia's lips curled into a barely concealed smirk, and her next words erased any doubt about her intentions. "Guess the MAGA hat was unlucky today," she muttered, her tone casual but loud enough for Alex to hear. The words hung in the air like a slap. The restaurant fell silent. A few patrons chuckled nervously, their laughter awkward and unsure. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their gazes darting between Alex and Mia. A family seated nearby avoided looking at him altogether, their eyes fixed firmly on their plates, as if pretending not to notice. Alex held her gaze for a moment, his face unreadable. The sauce continued to drip, pooling on the floor beneath him. The silence stretched, thick with tension, as Mia shifted her weight from one foot to the other, still holding the empty plate. Her smirk wavered slightly under the weight of his calm stare, but she didn't back down. Around the room, the unease was palpable. Some patrons looked embarrassed on Mia's behalf, while others watched with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort, waiting to see how Alex would respond. But Alex didn't yell or lash out. Instead, he reached for a napkin from the table, calmly wiping at the mess as if he hadn't just been publicly humiliated. The room held its breath, waiting for what would happen next. Alex walks to the restroom to clean up, his mind racing. This wasn't just about the hat, it was about what it symbolized to people like Mia. Prejudice, misunderstanding, and a refusal to look past appearances. He could let it slide, but this isn't the first time he's encountered this kind of treatment. When he returns, the restaurant manager, Brad, is waiting for him at his table. "Sir, I understand there was an incident," Brad starts, his voice cold. "We apologize for the inconvenience, but Mia said you were being disruptive. We're going to have to ask you to leave." Alex raises an eyebrow. "Disruptive? I've barely said a word." Brad folds his arms. "We don't want any trouble here, especially not with political statements like that." He gestures to Alex's hat. Alex sighs and pulls out his phone. "Fine. Before I go, let me make a quick call." Brad and Mia exchange confused looks as Alex dials. Within minutes, the door swings open, and a local reporter walks in, followed by a city official. "Mayor Harper," the reporter says, camera already rolling. "We heard about an incident. Can you comment?" The color drains from Mia and Brad's faces. Alex turns to the camera. "Today, I came here as a private citizen, wearing a hat that reflects my beliefs. I was treated poorly and accused of being disruptive simply for my appearance. This kind of bias has no place in our town." The story goes viral within hours. By the next morning, the restaurant's social media pages are flooded with angry comments. Mia is suspended, and Brad issues a public apology, but the damage is done. Alex, meanwhile, uses the incident to start a town hall series on respecting differing opinions and ending political discrimination. His approval ratings soar, and people admire his calm and dignified response. As for the restaurant, it sees a sharp decline in business, serving as a reminder that prejudice doesn't pay.